It was meant to be just another strained family gathering. I'd spent the morning selecting a modest bouquet of flowers, something bright yet unassuming, and a plain cake from the town's only bakery that still crafted my mother's beloved citrus glaze. I told myself, as I did every year, that perhaps this time she'd beam when she saw me. Perhaps this time she wouldn't look like my arrival soured her mood. When I stepped into the house, the air carried the scent of costly fragrance and roasted poultry, but the vibe was frigid. My sister sat at the dining table, impeccably dressed, my parents chuckling at her witty remark as if she were their sole child. My mother didn't even glance my way when I entered. "Hey, Mom," I said quietly, extending the flowers. "Happy birthday." She finally looked up, her gaze sweeping over the bouquet as if it offended her. She didn't thank me. Instead, she tilted her head, her lips twisting into that sharp, rehearsed smirk that had shadowed my childhood. "You know what would make my day?" she said, loud enough for the room to hear. "If you just vanished from my world, that would truly make this perfect." The words hit me like a blow, sharper than any barb she'd hurled before. My sister snickered into her glass, muttering, "She's got a point." My father just grinned like it was a family jest. The room blurred, my pulse thundering in my ears. For a fleeting moment, I considered pleading, asking why, asking what I'd done to deserve this, asking what kind of mother could wish her child gone on her own birthday. But I didn't. I placed the flowers gently on the table, my hands trembling, and said softly, "Understood. You'll get your wish." My mother flicked her wrist dismissively, already turning back to my sister. "Good. At least you're finally useful." I left the house without a backward glance, the sting of shame burning fiercer with every step. This time I didn't return. Days stretched into weeks, weeks into months. The phone stayed silent. Not a single call to check if I was okay, not a word of regret for what they'd said. It was as if I'd never been part of their lives. The only message came from my sister, a single photo of my former bedroom, now redecorated in bright colors, captioned, "Finally useful." I built a new life far away. No family portraits on my walls, no traces of the people who made me feel like an intruder in my own home. I stopped waiting for an apology, stopped hoping they'd ever see me as more than a burden they wished to erase. My life was quiet, sometimes solitary, but it was liberated, free from their cruel words, free from being the joke in my own family's tale. Then 3 years later, my phone vibrated with an unknown number. I ignored it. An email followed, its subject line reading, "Family gathering, your presence needed." It wasn't an apology, not a "we miss you" or "we're sorry." It was a plea laced with urgency. "We're creating a grand family photo collection for our upcoming anniversary event. Everyone needs to be there, and your absence would stand out. It'd be awkward to have an empty spot where you belong. Please don't cause a fuss. Just show up for the pictures. It matters to us." I read it 3 times, anger rising in my throat. 3 years of silence, 3 years of being the daughter they were glad to forget, and now they needed me, not for love, not for family, but to fill a gap in their perfect facade. I stared at the email, and for the first time since my mother's birthday, I didn't cry or question why they despised me. A sharp clarity settled within me. They wanted a face for their album, a prop to uphold their illusion of a flawless family. This time I wouldn't return as their afterthought. I wouldn't smile and pretend I belonged. I'd give them what they asked for and ensure they regretted it. The gathering was set for a Saturday afternoon in early spring. The email specified family only, but the venue was a lavish rented hall, adorned to look like a storybook scene, crisp white linens, gold-edged frames awaiting photos, banners proclaiming, "Celebrating 30 years of cherished memories." The irony was almost comical. I lingered outside the hall, my reflection staring back from the glass door. My face, the one they'd rejected for years, the one my mother called the greatest gift to lose, was now essential to complete their image. I vowed then that I wouldn't enter quietly. Inside, everything was orchestrated. My mother stood near the main table in a glittering gown, smiling broadly for the few relatives who believed this family was joyful. My sister fluttered about, ensuring every detail was flawless. My father issued orders about where the hired photographer should position himself. His usual harsh tone softened for the audience. When they spotted me, my mother paused for a split second, surprise flickering before her fake smile returned. She approached, arms half extended but rigid as if the gesture pained her. "You came," she said loudly, her voice oozing false affection. "It means the world that you're here." I tilted my head, keeping my tone steady. "Sure, wouldn't want your precious album to have an empty space where your discarded kid should be." Her smile faltered. "Let's not make a scene." she hissed, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. Just behave today. Behave. As if I were a prop they could position to make their family seem whole while pretending they hadn't cast me aside. I scanned the tables, cousins laughing, aunts sipping drinks, old photos displayed from years past. My sister's milestones filled the frames, birthdays, graduations, trips. My face appeared rarely, and when it did, I was a faint blur or half-cropped, like I'd been a shadow even when I lived there. The photographer, oblivious to the tension, called out, "Time for the group shot," and waved everyone to gather. My mother arranged the family, pulling my sister close. When she turned to me, her voice dropped to a sharp whisper. "Stand on the edge. We don't want you spoiling the main shot." Something inside me solidified. I stepped to the center instead, standing between my parents. My mother's nails bit into my arm as she muttered, "Move." I stared ahead, my voice calm but loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Strange, 3 years ago you said the best gift I could give was to vanish. Now you need me to make you look like a parent." A hush spread. My father tensed, his hand clenching, but I pressed on louder. "This album is a sham. You didn't want me in your lives, remember? You only want my face so outsiders won't see the truth, that this family only had space for one daughter, and it was never me." Relatives shifted awkwardly. The photographer hesitated, unsure. My sister's face flushed with fury, but she had no retort. My mother's smile fractured, revealing the resentment beneath. I stepped back from the group, my voice steady despite my racing pulse. "You told me to disappear, said I was the problem. So I gave you what you wanted, and now you're asking me to fill the void you created in your fake family dream?" "No," whispers rippled through the crowd. My parents stood rigid, their faces pale, their carefully crafted image unraveling before their audience. I didn't wait for a reply. I grabbed an empty frame meant for their memories, held it up for the photographer, and said, loud enough for the hall to hear, "Here's the truth. You want a family portrait? Frame this, me leaving, just as you told me to 3 years ago." I turned and walked out, leaving them in the ruins of their staged celebration. My heart raced, but I felt lighter than I had in years. This wasn't the end. They'd wanted me erased, wanted my face only to polish their lie. But I had one final act to ensure they could never pretend again. Their precious album would never be the perfect story they envisioned. It would carry a truth they couldn't hide. The week after the ruined gathering, the family chat, which I'd been excluded from years ago, erupted with messages I wasn't meant to see, but a cousin who'd attended forwarded them to me. My mother was livid, claiming I'd shamed her without cause. My sister called me a bitter phantom, accusing me of wrecking their event. My father ranted that I'd always been theatrical and should have been grateful they let me attend. But one message stood out. "We can't let her destroy the album. We'll just edit her in and make it look like she was happy." It felt like a dagger to the chest. Then something colder, fiercer took hold. Even after everything, they still saw me as a prop to paste into their illusion of a loving family. So, I decided to create an album they could never erase or ignore. I contacted every relative and family friend who'd quietly confided in me over the years about my parents' cruelty. Some were reluctant, but many were ready to speak. I gathered their stories, their messages, their photos of moments my parents had buried, images of me sitting alone at holiday dinners while my sister opened lavish gifts, birthdays where they forgot my plate, recitals where no one came. Then I took the photos my parents had chosen for their pristine album, each one a facade of warmth and unity. I added captions, truthful, undeniable, drawn from their own handwritten notes, old letters or words they'd flung at me. Beneath a beach vacation photo, "We only took you so no one would ask why you weren't there." Under a holiday snapshot, "Your sister gets the real gifts, you don't deserve them." On the back of their treasured school photo, "Wish we'd only had one child." I had countless such truths. I compiled them into a thick, leather-bound book and sent copies to every guest at the reunion, the photographer, their neighbors, even their church. Each recipient opened what they expected to be a polished family keepsake, and instead found a chronicle of decades of cruelty, favoritism, and intentional wounds. My parents couldn't escape it. Everywhere they went, someone had seen the album. They couldn't deny their own handwriting, couldn't dismiss the photos, couldn't claim it was fabricated when people recognized their words and actions. My mother's friends began asking uncomfortable questions. My father's colleagues gave him sidelong glances. The image they'd spent 30 years crafting, perfect, devoted parents, was shattered, replaced by the truth they'd tried to bury with me. Weeks later, I received a single text from my mother, no greeting, no remorse, just 4 words. "You've destroyed everything." I stared at the screen, then replied, my hand steady, my heart calm. No, Mom, you did. I just showed everyone. For the first time, I was truly free, not because they'd pushed me out, but because I'd revealed the family they'd discarded me from. They'd said the best gift was my absence, and I gave it to them. But now, every time they open that cursed album or catch someone's pitying glance, they'll remember that the daughter they erased left behind a truth they can't hide or fake. The truth.